Welcome to my video about Antarctica. This is going to be the first in a three-part video series to where I actually talk about the entire trip, because I thought about doing a live stream. I thought about doing this in other ways, but there's just so much that I don't know. It was a once-in-a-lifetime trip in many ways. It was an incredible trip, but it was a journey. It was a saga. It was a lot of things, and I'm here to do my best to try and unpack everything. So I'm gonna just keep the video rolling. I'm not gonna stop it. No matter if I screw up or if my wife walks in and joins or whatever. I'm just gonna do this kind of raw. I may edit some of this out, but I may not. I don't really like editing stuff, but my goal is to splice some pictures in, splice some videos, because there's just so much to see of this continent that many of you probably have not seen or even thought about. I mean, whenever you see Antarctica, maybe I'll show on the map, but it's just kind of this blob on the bottom of the map. You have the world where everybody lives, and then there's this dark blue mass down there, and it's typically dark, it's typically black, or it's blue, and it's like, okay, nobody lives down there, nobody cares. But it's actually an entire world down there. I mean, it feels like it's kind of its own planet, but we're gonna get into that. I'm not gonna spoil anything. So this part is going to be focused on the entire trip, because I know a lot of people wondering, like, how do you even get there? Like, I know where it is on the map. I can like look at a map of the world and be like, oh, okay, it's down there. But how do you get there? What's it like when you arrive? The flight process, because many of you know that I live in Japan, so obviously that's a long freaking ways away from Antarctica. So obviously had to deal with that piece. So this video is going to focus on getting there. The next part two, is going to focus on the actual trip itself. It's gonna everything I saw, stuff I did there, people we met, the boat itself, Antarctica itself. What's it like? Was it cold? Yes, it was cold, but not as cold as you think. This time of year, at least, it's December. We'll talk about that, and then in the third and final part of the video, we'll talk about the journey back, which, as I'm recording this, COVID seems like it's having a resurgence. I mean, it seems like it's been in a resurgence for like the past several months. I don't know what's going on, but obviously we all know about the Omicron, the new variant that came out actually the week before that we were due to leave, and of course that severely affected our trip and our way back. So don't forget to subscribe to this channel to make sure you catch all of the videos, and not just hear about my trip to Antarctica, but the other stuff that I'm constantly working on, all my other projects, especially with the end of the year coming up. I got a big year-end wrap-up video that I'm planning to do to get ready for 2022. Oh, that rhymed. I didn't think that was going to rhyme. Okay, so let's start out. Let's jump right into it. And I'm just going to take it leg by leg. And I may have graphics with this. I may not. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what's going to happen. But, so we left on December 4th. That was a Saturday. Early in the morning, 0600. We got up and we made the first leg of our journey, which is a taxi ride to the airport here in Okinawa, Naha Airport. Pretty uneventful taxi ride. We were pretty much still dragging and tired because we had been doing all this prep the night before. We were repacking our stuff and making sure we had every possible thing we needed, because we knew we needed a bunch of cold weather gear. My wife asked me a bunch of times, do you have your gloves, do you have your hats, your scarf? And every other thing I was like, oh yeah, I got that. And then the next thing I'd be like, and then she'd look at me like, I told you to pack that a long time ago. Why didn't you pack it? Dummy. She didn't say that, but I mean, she would look at me like that, right? She's gonna walk in anytime, but she's gonna watch this anyway. But I love you, baby. So we stayed up late doing that. So we got to the airport, no problem, very easy taxi ride, pretty uneventful. The next was the flight to Tokyo. So anytime that we fly from Okinawa, we always have to make that flight from Okinawa to Tokyo, because Okinawa is kind of a stopover. This isn't I think there are some international flights that fly directly from here, but there's very few, and they're very expensive if they do exist. So we had to fly to Tokyo, and the flight was fine. It was smooth, but this flight, I've taken it many times in my life since I used to live here in Okinawa like a decade ago, and it's just long enough. It's one of those flights where you can fall asleep and then it's still not over. It's not like it's a long-ish flight. It's about 2.5 hours, but it's long enough for you to notice that it's not so short. So anyway, it was a good flight, pretty uneventful. So we arrived at Haneda Airport, and this was where the first surprise of the trip hit us. There's our bags, the last two. We tried to get something to eat, but we didn't see anything that we liked. So this is Haneda Haneda Airport. Haven't been here in years, but I'm back. Let's get the bags and head on and find something to eat. Because we landed at the airport, and well, let me go back before I talk about the surprise. I don't want to spoil it. So there, and if I can include a couple of shots, I might, of this, we ate the last meal, like good meal that we would have until we actually got on the ship. We didn't know that at the time, that it was going to be the last good meal, but what was the place called? Oh, man. I know. I'm going to remember it after I stop recording because I can't remember it, but it was kind of amazing because here you are at this airport, Haneda Airport, and then you walk into this place. It's like a Japanese style diner type place, and they had the fancy restaurant lighting. The food was just excellent, immaculately served up. Just awesome place, awesome food. There's lunch. And so from there, we had to take the bus to Narita Airport. So Haneda Airport is like the Japanese domestic airport. A lot of domestic flights, very busy. Actually, the busiest airport here in Japan. Narita Airport is the second busiest. It's bigger as an international hub. It's not as busy throughput-wise, but it's still very busy typically. So we took a bus. It was about maybe close to an hour, maybe 50-minute bus ride across town to Narita Airport, and that's where saw our first surprise. And many of you, maybe you saw a video that I posted a while back when I still had access to internet before we got on the cruise ship. There was hardly anybody there. Where the hell did everybody go? We're at Narita Airport in the middle of the afternoon. It's Saturday, and there's nobody here. It's like there's not this guy, he's not doing anything. It's crazy. I've never seen an airport this empty, ever. What the hell? And I'm going to post a clip to see if I can post a clip during this time and show you of me like panning across this typically very, very busy airport that there's nobody there. December 4th, 2021. So that was surprising. We rolled up at about 2 p.m. in the afternoon, and we were the only ones there, like outside the airport. Very weird. And what it turns out, it was that weekend, I think on December 1st actually, Japan had clamped down their travel restrictions, so people weren't really leaving and people weren't really coming in. So that was what we were seeing, but we didn't really know that at the time, that we're going to see such a visible effect in airport traffic at a notoriously busy airport. So anyway, that aside, we hop on our flight from Narita to LAX to LA, and as you can imagine, it's a long flight. I think this one was about maybe 10 hours. If my times are off and you're looking them up, like, oh man, that's BS, it's longer than that, whatever. This is a lot of flights, so I kind of, lost track, but this flight was pretty good. Yeah, there was really nothing remarkable about the flight. I mean, it was, we flew Japanese Airlines, and yeah, it's a comfortable flight. Don't really have anything else to say about it. I watched a really interesting movie on that flight. Watched two interesting movies that I remember. I watched one called The Doorman, and it was actually a woman who was the doorman. It was like this action movie. It was some pretty killer fight scenes in there. And then I watched The Translators. It was this French movie, and it was really kind of like a French like suspense and thriller, who done it, and there was all these. I love languages, so there was all these different languages spoken. Obviously, all these translators get together and are put into a house to translate this one book, but the guy's really mysterious about what he wants them to translate. It's a dope movie, yo. It's awesome movie. Loved it. Anyway, so get to LAX, and this was where the first signs that we were going to encounter some difficulties getting you to South America, or going through South America, I should say, because we weren't, we were trying to go to Antarctica, so there's a couple of different gateways to get there. I don't know all the others. I know you can go there from New Zealand. I know you can go there from Australia, because these are places that are closer, southern hemisphere places. But a popular place, the closest place to go to Antarctica is through South America, to Chile and Argentina. Those are the closest countries to Antarctica. So we're gonna have to go through there. So we landed at LAX. Headed back home. And as soon as we get to the counter, and by this time we're tired, we've been traveling for a little over a day at this point, and it's already daytime. So we left early Saturday morning. I told you 0600. Then we land at LAX. It's Saturday morning again. Yeah, whenever I start thinking about the time shift, like especially coming from over here, Asia to America, I can't do it, y'all. My head kind of just blows up, and I have to be like, okay, let me think about something else. It doesn't work. So we're already super tired. We go to Latam Airlines. That's the air carrier we were taking down to South America, and they're telling us all these things that we need proof of our medical insurance and stuff, and we have a special type of medical insurance that only is offered for military people. So they don't. It's not like a standard civilian where they outline all these things. So they're like, we want to see proof that you have COVID coverage, like that it covers COVID, and that was the first kind of hiccup. So we had to kind of massage that and get through that, and then I don't know, but I've of course flown through LAX many times throughout my life, and I think it was because we were just coming from Japan that if you've flown out LAX, it's just kind of, things were just kind of raggedy. I don't know if it was just that terminal or just that day. Just things seemed extra dirty. We were super hungry after we got through security. That was a hassle too, because they took my bag and they had to rescan it, and then they forgot it was there, so they had to go back. And my shoes are left off, and I was going through security for like 25-30 minutes. It was ridiculous. It's standard going through security. It is just it feels like a rite of passage or something, or some type of trial. I don't know what it is. Like, you have to prove yourself if you're gonna fly to this place, right? But yeah, we stood in line for way too long to get a burger that was way too cold, that cost way too much money. The food court was just dark, and we were both like, it was nice to like be back home, like on American soil for a little bit, because we actually haven't been back since we moved to Japan in the last, like, before we traveled, 3 months or so. We hadn't been back to America, but we were like, it's time to leave. It's kind of dipped. So we kind of hung around as long as we needed to, and then we hopped on our flight to Santiago. So the flight to Santiago, LAX to Santiago, it's actually a pretty long flight. I had never flown that far south. Previously, we went to Galapagos Islands about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago. So we went to Ecuador. That wasn't too long, but this one was a lot longer. It's like 10 or 11 hours. And I don't think I was prepared for how long this flight was, or how long the next day would be. We're going to get to that. I was not prepared because, first of all, I was in a middle seat. And whenever, my wife and I get tickets, my wife usually books our tickets. And if we get middle aisle seat, she'll usually sit in the middle, because she knows, like, I like the aisle seat because I like to typically stretch out my legs, because my legs are a little bit long. But if we get middle window seat, I typically let her have the window seat, especially if it's a place we haven't been to, because she likes looking out the window and all that stuff. And then she'll have more room to like sleep. So that means I'm in the middle in this flight, which is not too bad. But I was seated next to a larger gentleman, and very nice guy. But I mean, I could tell he was uncomfortable. I was uncomfortable because I'm sitting like this. My arms are like pretty long. You can't tell on this video, but my wingspan, I'm not super tall, but my arms are long. Like I should have been taller, but I'm not. And yeah, doing that for 10 or 11 hours is, yeah, not very fun. And so that was our first taste of Latam Airlines. And I don't know, just something about the customer service on that airline, on that particular flight. It wasn't tip top. It just we'd ask for things. It felt like it was kind of a burden. Like I don't know, it was just one of those types of flights where I don't know if they were having a bad day or whatever. But so at this point, we're exhausted. It's a long flight. I'm sitting like this for 10 or 12, not 12 hours, 10 or 11 hours, and we land in Santiago, Chile. So we're in Chile, and the first thing we encounter, because we need to go to the bathroom, because we've been, sitting, it's been a long flight, so we go to the bathroom, and that was mistake number one. So all we saw was a very long corridor, and there was nobody there. By the time we get done using the facilities, we get out, the line is back to the bathrooms. And where's this line to? We have no freaking idea. We're just being told to line up. And where are we going? What are we doing? Nobody's saying anything. So, it's just standard airport traffic. But everybody that was on that flight, which it was a full flight, we're just standing there. So at this point, it's morning. It's finally Sunday. It's finally the next day. Like we've lived through 2 Saturdays now. The Saturday coming from Japan, now the Saturday getting down there. Now it's another day, and I cannot sleep well on the plane, y'all. I try to sleep on the plane. I try and like dope myself, like try and take sleep aids. Like I just wake up hour, 2 hours later. I just can't do it. Like I mean, I guess because I'm just sleeping like sitting up, I can't do it very well. So at this point, I've barely slept. I stink. I think I stink. Maybe not that bad, but I don't know. I'm not feeling too good. And we're standing in this line. So my wife's like, oh, let's go see what the line is. Because there was a corridor like many, many people up ahead. So I walked all the way to the front. She held our place. And I see it's a COVID screening line. There's like left side for if you've already been pre-screened or whatever, and then right side if you're like, or left side was like for citizens, like Chilean citizens, and the right side was like foreign citizens if you're just flying in. Maybe there were Chilean citizens, I don't know. It was just left side, nobody was in that, there was no line. Right side, everybody was in the line. So we stand in the line, and it's like, oh, it's for COVID. Like, oh man. So we stand and we stand. We stand some more. We finally get through that corridor where it says, okay, split off. And then we're like, oh, we're turning the corner. It's another long corridor that looks literally exactly the same. And the line just kept going. It just kept going. 3 hours later. I'm not even joking. I just need to put that SpongeBob thing in. 3 hours later, like they put in, right? We finally get somewhere. And where do we get? We get to this, they have this army of screeners. And I think what made things more challenging is that Chile is doing everything they can to like mitigate COVID, but they've come up with this system that is just very cumbersome, and it requires a lot of different documents that are digital. Some are paper. They send it to you ahead of time, but then you have to like check in on this app, and you have to scan it, and you have to get the email that they gave you. We had to fill something out here in Japan before we even left, and that required a couple of days of approval, and it was just it was just a lot. So when you get there, they ask for all this stuff, and you need your recent COVID test, which we took a COVID test right before we left here. You need your vaccine passport, which is what they send you to your email. And then there was another paper that I think they gave us on the flight or something and then of course your passport, all this stuff. So all this stuff you have to dig it out. So they're doing this for everybody, hundreds of people. So you can imagine that this is not a quick process, and hence the 3 hour wait. So, and let me be clear. Like, it was 3 hours total. Like, it took us maybe about, maybe it was 3 hours just to get to the COVID part. I don't remember. It was a long time that we were standing in line. So we finally get through the screening, and they put us in another line, and that was the next line to actually get down to the COVID test. So we finally get through this line, and then it's like, okay, now go downstairs, and then the true line reveals itself. So we finally see, oh, there's the partitions where they've got the nurses and they're doing the COVID testing. Okay, so we snake our way through the line, and my wife's tired. At this point, I'm carrying all of our both of our bags. We don't have our check bags yet, but I'm carrying. So I'm just standing there, she's tired. And I'm like, okay, we're just ragged at this point. So we sit down to get the COVID test. And their COVID test, it's not, people in the U.S., they get squeamish about the two swabs up the nose, right? Here in Chile, they don't play. They making sure they getting that DNA matter or whatever, So they take the swab, and they're like, the nurse says, abre la boca. And I'm like, abre la boca? Like, I turn my nose expecting, no, open your mouth. And the swab goes in, and I thought it was going to be, okay, maybe it's like a cheek swab, okay, that makes sense, DNA. No, it was like a back of the throat. We need the back of your tongue, son. Like, we need that. And I was like, so they get that, and you're sitting there, my eyes are watering, like, and then they take the same swab, and they stuck it up my nose to get the sample, the standard COVID sample. So I was like, yo, I was not expecting this. This is kind of, I don't know, a little uncomfortable that this is how we get the COVID test. But hey, their country, their rules, right? So we get done, and I just remember this one lady passed by, and she just she kind of laughed and said, horrible. Just one word, and she walked off with her friend. Like, terrible and horrible in Spanish. So we get through this ordeal, and they tell us, we're going to give you your results in a few hours. So we're like, cool. At this point, we've already missed our connection flight to where we're trying to go, which is Punta Arenas, our final destination. After all of these flights, we've already missed it. We missed it by like an hour at least. So we finally get up to where we can get our next flight, and we're trying to rush to, because we had to get our bags because we're coming from America. We had to get our checked luggage. We're carrying the stuff around, and we go to the counter, or we go to line up to sign up for our next flight, and we're told, oh, you can't book the next flight. And we're like, why not? And they're like, because you don't have a COVID test. Well, what do you mean we don't have a COVID test? Oh, baby, I'm telling the COVID test story. It's like, what? My wife just poked her head in. I love you. But we were like, what do you mean you don't have the COVID test? We have it right here, the one from Japan. And they were like, no, you need a proof of passing a Chilean COVID test. Our COVID test, the one, remember the one where you got your throat probed by the swab? Yeah, that COVID test. We need that result. We will only accept that. We didn't know this, so I'm giving you the short version. But the long version is that the person who told us initially didn't really know what we needed. So they told us to go to another line, which was not the place where you check in, the standard counter where you go. It's the same, universal, every airport around the world. No, it was like a service counter. So I was like, okay, now I know we're in trouble. Because why are we going to the service counter? Like, what do we need to go there for? And the line is slow, the line is long. It literally taking forever. But so at this point, we're kind of hungry. It's like lunchtime their time. And I didn't mention a little wrinkle that when we arrived in Chile, they give you this little sticker that says, I'm on quarantine. I I just arrived in the country and I'm not COVID cleared, basically. So, we put it on because we were told to and thought nothing of it until we tried to go get some food, yo. Like, so I tried to go, like, I think I went to Dunkin' Donuts or something. They had a Dunkin' Donuts there. And I waited in another 20-minute long line to get to it was a packed Dunkin' Donuts. And I get to the front, and the guy says in very polite Spanish, like, "Oh, no, señor, no puedo servirle." He's like, "I can't serve you because, you have the sticker. You're on quarantine." And I was like, at this point, we've been there for hours. Like, I totally forgot about the damn sticker. This thing is like the scarlet letter there. So they turn you away, and then I tried to go to another restaurant. They turn you away. So the only place we could go is like this like little mini mart style. They have these airports. You can get water and snacks and little food. So that was the only place we could go that they would serve us. Like any sit down restaurant, they would not serve you as long as you're not cleared, COVID cleared. So after we stood in several different lines and got the runaround, we find out that we indeed cannot even book the flight that we've already paid for. We cannot book that flight, and that we've already missed, by the way, until we get the results from the Chilean COVID test. And we're like, "Oh, so how long does it take?" Well, they were like, "Oh, well," there was somebody in line that was like, "Oh, it's only 6 to 12 hours. I went and got a hotel." And we're like, "No, we cannot get no hotel. Like, you don't understand. We ain't trying to stay here at night. We already got a reservation in the place we're trying to go." So we just kind of sat for a couple of hours. And maybe you saw a video. That's where I did I had internet, so I was able to do like a blog post and talk about how we were just in the airport, we just kind of sitting there. And I look at that video. Maybe I'll show a clip of it right now. All right, quick update. So we're in the Santiago Airport, and basically just got told, even though we had already purchased the connecting flight, that we cannot board our next flight until we have a negative COVID test from Chile. So we got a COVID test. As soon as we got off the flight, like we waited in a super long line it was literally like 3 hours, no joke. And at the end, we got the COVID test. And until you have the results of that test, you cannot get on their flight to go anywhere in the country. So we're kind of stuck. I look so tired. Like my eyes are glassy. I look stoned. And I was that tired. I had not slept in like very much in the past like 48 hours. So yeah, I was just kind of just out of it. So I remember I just laid down and kind of like got a solid 45 minutes of sleep. But if you've ever been to Santiago Airport, and I'm not trying to knock the airport. I know they do the best they can, but it's not really the best well-kept airport. I remember a feature, I just felt like it's just kind of dusty. It surely is just kind of very dusty. Like, not like there's dust, like nobody's there to using it. Like, there's like dust bunnies, like, like the balls of dust that kind of you sweep up, and it's like, oh, balls of dust. There's a lot of those all around. I was like on the stairs and stuff. Like, nobody got no broom here? Like, what's going on? Anyway, so that happened. And we waited. And we waited. And at this point, we're kind of unsure if we're even going to get to go. Like, how long is this going to take? Well, finally, the results came in. We got the emails. And, of course, it was a check mark, negative tests. And we were able to proceed and take our flight. That was somewhere around the afternoon. So our flight to Punta Arenas, it left sometime in the evening. I don't remember exactly when, y'all. I was at this point, I was out of it. I was just like, okay, where we gotta put the bags, where we go, where are the seats. You know how you just get into this mode. Anybody who traveled a lot, you're just like, look, let me just get there. So we finally get on this flight to Punta Arenas, and it actually was a very uneventful flight. I don't remember much of it because I was like out for like half of it. It was kind of a longer flight because if you look at Chile on the map, it's like almost a line basically. It's like just mountains on the side, and on the left is the ocean. So it was probably about a 2.5 hour, probably same length as Okinawa to Tokyo, around there. It was around that flight time. So we landed finally, Punta Arenas, and it's a small airport, small town, and we get to our lodging. And by the way, I realized that we didn't have any cash, that we were gonna need cash, so I pulled out I didn't even know the currency. Like at this point, it was like 10 p.m. there. It was later. It was maybe like closer to midnight in Punta Arenas, and I was like, look, just give the cash. I didn't even know where we were at. I was just like, how much do I need? Whatever. I put the ATM. I got it, and we got into the cab, and I remember the guy. I started speaking Spanish to the guy, and that's where I kind of woke up because I love languages. I speak Spanish. I'm pretty fluent in Spanish, so I was ready to like come alive with my Spanish. And the guy, in as best English as he could, limited English, but he was like, where it come from, like, and we were like, oh, we came from Japan. And just seeing us, my wife's Asian, obviously, and I'm black, so the guy just was kind of confused. He was like, what are y'all doing down here? And we were like, oh, we're going to Antarctica, telling him. And he was like, oh. He said, es muy distinto, like, to like where we came from and why we were, anytime we talk about where we're from, my wife always confuses people when she says where she's from. Was born in America, but then she grew up a lot in Singapore and all this stuff. And then me, I'm from Texas, San Antonio, so predictably, I speak Spanish, but then I also speak other languages as well. And it's just, people are just kind of blown away when they hear where we're from. But I live in Japan and all this stuff. So, long story short, it was fun to talk to that guy in Spanish, and drove us through the town. Punta Arenas, very small town. Obviously couldn't see much of it because it was dark and we were just passing through. We get to our Airbnb and pretty much shower, sleep. I mean, I had time to make one video, and I think I posted that video. Maybe I'll put a link to it here in this video. But I had time to make one video before we went to sleep. We kind of just passed out. Okay, so here is the Airbnb. I'm just going to show you a wide shot. Because the next morning, we were due to be at our hotel. We had to check out of there by 11, so we slept all the way max, like 10:30. We were just out. And yeah, we checked out, and then we headed down to our hotel. Yeah, I got it. Which I actually had time. I wrote this journal article. I had a journal with me because I knew I wasn't going to have access to internet. So I actually wrote this when we arrived in Antarctica about Punta Arenas. Kind of my impressions. We finally had much needed rest in a quaint Airbnb located in downtown Punta Arenas. Arriving a little past midnight, we could tell that the city was slightly run down, with graffiti plastered over worn building facades. Many boarded up and cold. The Ciudadita reminded me of many of the small towns in Alaska we visited in the summer, with rocky streets and cool air whistling from the ocean nearby. In the morning, we walked toward that steely blue surface, its many tiny waves rippling, toward the Hotel de Hornos, where we were to meet for the beginning of the Antarctica 21 tour. The hotel was like a golden flower in a weed field, its opulence enviable to the daily working class Chilean citizen. Our first surprise of the day came when we were informed by the staff that we were due to fly to Antarctica by 1300 in the afternoon. Our original departure time was supposed to be tomorrow, the next day. This kicked off a whirlwind of an afternoon. We completed and passed another COVID test done by the company, reshuffled our luggage to conform with the weight requirements on the boat, geared up to brace for the polar weather, then caught a bus to the airport. 2 hours later, we were wheels up, touching down on the Antarctica surface about 2 hours later. my journal, my words.
Okay, I'm here at the hotel, the hotel for the Antarctica trip, and a surprising turn of events. We're leaving today. We did not expect to leave today, but I guess today's the day that we make it. So I'm all geared up, all weather, like their boots. So it's time to go. It's time to get going. So next video, we'll see from Antarctica. Check it.
And I'll stop there because that is going to bring us to the end of this part 1 video. And I don't know how long it's been. Maybe it's been like half an hour. But yeah, suffice it to say, we did not have a lot of time. We were expecting, so the way the trip was structured, like the way we were told is structured, is that when you arrive at the hotel, you're supposed to have that day to kind of compress, because everybody's flying in from all over the world, literally. So you have that time to compress, and they have time to give you like pre-briefs about what to expect on the boat and your gear, and you have time to get all your gear. You have time to take the COVID test. You have time to kind of eat and kind of like ease into the trip. Well, that didn't really happen for us, as you can tell from my journal article, because as I found out, and as you will too, much is dependent on the weather in Antarctica. If Antarctica says you're not going to go, you don't go. And that's going to be a key to part 3 of the story. Actually, part 2, the weather is going to be a huge factor in a lot of the things that we were able to do, we're able to see, and how things played out. And if you want to find out what happened on the trip, actually, you have to tune into the next video. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, share it with your friends. I appreciate that. Don't forget to find me on Twitter. I'm most active on Twitter at @KH_author. You can also find me on my website, keithhayden.net. You can find all of the updates there, and you can find the first part of this Antarctic journey. So thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you in part 2.